joining us now. He's been a member of the jury for the Pen Club's Freedom of Expression Award, New Yorker staff writer Phillip Gourevitch. Thanks for being with us again here on France 24. In your magazine, Phillip, the Nigerian-American novelist Teju Cole writing, in recent years, Charlie Hebdo has gone specifically for racist and Islamophobic provocations. What's your reaction to that?
I think that it's a clear misreading of how those images were being used and were being received in France. I think that what Teju Cole was writing about was the fact that you have pictures that, taken as pictures by themselves, are racist cartoons. A picture of a black woman as a monkey, and it turns out that woman is the Minister of Justice, and the Minister of Justice is not somebody who you would depict as a monkey, except in a racist image, except that if you look at the cover of the Charlie Hebdo that depicted it that way, there's a National Front flame and the words of a sort of Front Unifié bleu raciste instead of, excuse me, bleu marine. And there you have a very clear misreading of what was going on, which was that this was a cover that used a racist image to show the image as it was in the heads of the racist politicians. The Charlie Hebdo legacy is very clear in France. The fact that the leaders of SOS Racisme have come out and said, this is the most anti-racist paper we have in the country, flies in the face of the criticism that's now being leveled against Pen. And you would also have to pay attention to the fact that the French minister herself, who was caricatured in this way on the cover of Charlie Hebdo, gave passionate homage at the funeral of the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists in January after the massacre. So I think that to now come along and speak out in her name against this cover seems misguided.
Phillip, the context is very French. This tradition of, we've talked about it a lot, of French satirical cartoons that are very biting and provocative. But we live in a globalized world where everyone around the world can see this. Can you be as provocative today without offending?
I don't think that there's any effort not to offend here. I think the intention was to offend and to shock and to be provocative, to be gross and crude and puerile, to be very, very aggressive, but to use expression rather than violence. And the award that Pen is giving is an award that honors courage in pursuit of free expression. A newspaper that courageously used nonviolence and free expression against violent opponents who tried to silence it, who blew up its headquarters once and continued to threaten to kill them, and who did that to a degree that most of us who enjoy free expression never show any courage like that. We take it for granted, and we aren't anywhere near as offensive or provocative. It's not my style of expression, but the test of free expression is not whether you agree with what's being said. We all support free expression by people whose expressions we approve. It's whether you approve it as expression that you believe is fair expression within the realm of debate and the exchange of ideas, and that faces a devastating, annihilating threat and stands up to it. And I think that on that level, the Pen Award and the solidarity of writers is totally deserved in this case.
Phillip, both sides accusing the other of groupthink. In this case, Rachel Kushner, the writer, saying that Charlie Hebdo promotes a, quote, kind of forced secular view.
I don't think Charlie Hebdo forced anybody to do anything. I think that Charlie Hebdo was an outsider newspaper in France, and there's sort of an attempt by some of these critics to now paint it as an instrument of French hegemonic power, which just, it's absurd. I mean, if you saw how the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists responded even to the honors that were paid to them by the state after their colleagues were massacred at their desks, the sort of thing that writers, it would seem to me, should have some sympathy for. And yet, so this is just, it doesn't seem to me to be based in a very close reading of the reality of the situation. It's not an accurate representation.
All right, there's the issue of Charlie Hebdo itself, and there's also this slogan, Je suis Charlie, I am Charlie. Some people feel that it stigmatizes part of the population which should have the right to feel offended by cartoons making fun of the Pope or the Prophet.
Everybody has the right to feel offended. Who's taking away anybody's right to feel offended? I'm offended by some of that stuff, but I support it as free expression, and I see that it is courageous. And I think that when people come to kill it, we need to stand for the nonviolent use of that expression. And the right to offend is part of the right of free speech. It has to be included. So, of course, one is offended. I would not say Je suis Charlie. It's neither do they speak for me, nor would I pretend that I have shown any such courage in my free expression. I have not risked the assassin's bullet in any way as directly or as deliberately as they have. And in that sense, they stand in a tradition that includes people in my mind like Lenny Bruce and like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, people who definitely offended very aggressively the most profound beliefs of their time and were told to shut up or be killed, and who gave their lives in one form or another or risked them very profoundly. That is what is being discussed here, and I don't really see that there's an opposite side to that set of facts.
How do you think that the gala is going to go next week?
We'll see. I assume that there's a lot more to these galas, by the way. And I would really stress that every year, last year they honored Pussy Riot, which is provocative, puerile, offensive, and insults religion. None of these people seem to be put up by that. I don't know why. You should ask them. Why did they have no problem with Pussy Riot? And they're upset about Charlie Hebdo. Every year they also give honors to people from all over the world, quite often from good knows Uzbekistan or from West African countries or from elsewhere in the world where, frankly, we have very little detailed knowledge of the context of what these people say and of their full range of expression. But we take the pen judgment and the experience that we're being told by people who know the place for it. And there has never been a protest like this, I don't think, since the Cold War era, when it was essentially broke down on left-right fellow traveler versus anti-communist lines about such things. And so I think that it's going to be important. There's an award being given to Tom Stoppard. There's an award being given to a writer who's in prison. I don't want to misstate the country, and it's in one of the former Soviet republics. And it's obviously much more to that. And I expect that the people who go to the gala will be there because they support it.
All right, two other issues I wanted to ask you about. First of all, your reaction, a comment made by Luz, the cartoonist who drew that cover, that first cover after the Paris terror attacks. He says he told a French magazine, "I will no longer draw the figure of Muhammad. It no longer interests me. I'm not going to spend my life drawing cartoons of Muhammad." Your thoughts on that?
I can understand that. I mean, the poor man has been saddled with the idea that this is his mission in life when it never was and needn't be. He must be exhausted by it. His colleagues were massacred for it. I don't think that it means that he's backing down from his only purpose in life. I can imagine that any sense of enthusiasm for doing that is gone, and the sense that he's obliged to do it must be crushing. But I don't think that he's saying Charlie Hebdo is abandoning or repudiating what it's done over the years, and that he is making a personal decision and just telling people where he stands.
All right, there's a problem on this planet still when it comes to religion and free speech. Philip, front page of last night's edition of Le Monde, the story of a junior high school student in the northeastern town of Charleville-Mézières, barred from attending class because of her long black skirt. It's deemed a violation of France's law banning ostentatious religious symbols. Her mother says she's going to comply. Your thoughts on once again, these problems that periodically come up with this French notion of laïcité, of secularism?
Well, that's a very, very French notion. And I should say that when we talk about freedom of expression, the French have a much, much more restricted idea of free expression than Americans. It's a shame to see American writers protesting free expression, the reward for free expression in a place that's much more restricted than we are. And here we see it. Here's somebody wearing a long skirt, not a religious symbol in anybody's normal interpretation in the world. Only in France are people banned from attending a public school because they are dressed in a modest skirt. Perhaps France will now say that laïcité means that people should be wearing miniskirts or that they should be wearing pants. It seems to me an absurdity and an outrage and an offense against free expression. Exactly. That this form of laïcité or that laïcité should take this form of imposition.
All right, Phillip Gourevitch, who definitely will be attending the Pen Gala next week from The New Yorker. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Thanks for being with us here on France 24.
Pleasure talking to you.